The Yankees have acquired who? What's going on, baseball fans? Jeremy Laracuente here for the Baseball Banter Broadcast. And if maybe you missed it late last night into the wee hours of the morning, the New York Yankees have acquired the services of Josh Donaldson and the recently acquired Minnesota Twin Isiah Kiner-Falefa, along with the catcher named Ben Rortvedt. This was in exchange for catcher Gary Sanchez and Gio Urshela. Now, I'm going to get into all of my thoughts and my details, but I want to start with my initial reaction. My initial reaction to this trade last night when it went down was absolute confusion. The New York Yankees have been trying to get under the luxury tax threshold. We thought that was going to be for going after a high-priced free agent like a Carlos Correa or a Freddie Freeman. We also thought and considered that there's a possibility that the Yankees may do multiple things, bringing in a starting pitcher as well as somebody to play shortstop. Now, the idea that the New York Yankees would go over this $230 million luxury tax threshold, this new CBA limit, by bringing in a veteran player, a injury-prone veteran player like a Josh Donaldson, and his $50 million contract is absolutely stunning. The question now becomes really, what are the Yankees thinking about acquiring this player who we know had some beef last season with Garrett Cole due to the spider tag? Now, obviously, both players are professional. Going into the same clubhouse will not affect them in this regard. But I also think that there's an opportunity here for the Yankees to maybe position Josh Donaldson and move him to someplace else. Hopefully that is the thought process, but let's get into the details. The addition of Isiah Kiner-Falefa is something that the New York Yankees have been looking to for quite a long time. This also makes it feel as if the Yankees are now out of the shortstop market. However, there are still reports that the Yankees are heavily involved in conversations with Trevor Story. Isiah Kiner-Falefa is going to be a player that has the ability to play all over the diamond. Second, short, third base, and even catcher. This is obviously a player who is very versatile and somebody that the Yankees would look to acquire and have been looking to acquire for quite some time. Being able to get him from the Minnesota Twins after failing to get him from the Texas Rangers is something that the Yankees are obviously happy to do. I also think that there's an opportunity for this player to be more of a role player, a bench player, a fill-in everywhere type of a player. Let's not forget that the guy that we had on this roster going into the 2022 campaign before the offseason started, looking to fill that kind of utility role, was either Tyler Wade, who they would release, or DJ LeMahieu, who at the start of the day yesterday was scheduled to play third base for the New York Yankees, according to manager Aaron Boone. Now, that also now leaves one of the positional players, Gio Urshela, that got moved. Urshela is absolutely one of the fan favorites for the New York Yankee fans, and the outpouring, the outcrying of upset fans over the loss, the trading away of Gio Urshela was absolutely great. For one, I thought that Gio Urshela was absolutely a very underrated player and an underrated third baseman. But going into the 2022 campaign, having Gio Urshela as the everyday third baseman was not going to be a reliable option. I think that he was going to be much better as a third baseman for us than as a shortstop. So getting somebody that actually plays shortstop and a Gold Glove caliber shortstop is what the Yankees have been looking for. Acquiring Isiah Kiner-Falefa as an intermediate is something that also has fans very divisive at this point, because the Yankees fans, half of the camp was looking to bring in a guy like Carlos Correa or Trevor Story. The other half was waiting for Anthony Volpe. I think that there's an opportunity here for the Yankees to position this player as a bench player, as a role player, a fill-in, and that could attempt to ease some of the burden on the Yankee fans. But that would be requiring the Yankees to go out and still get a player like a Carlos Correa or a Trevor Story to come in and play everyday shortstop. If that becomes the case, this move feels less burdensome and impactful for the fans. This part of it. Now let's get into the big meat of this trade. Josh Donaldson and Gary Sanchez. Josh Donaldson is a 36-year-old injury-prone player. We have seen him suffer through calf issues over the last couple of seasons, and it feels as if he's one calf strain away from missing half of the year. This is where the question mark of the Yankees taking on this entire $50 million for this deal absolutely comes into question in my mind. That's the biggest question mark. If Josh Donaldson is healthy, there's no doubt he has the ability to be able to help this team. But the question becomes whether or not he's going to be capable of being healthy enough to truly help the New York Yankees in 2022. If he can prove that health. This is obviously a player that can help this team. This is one of the biggest names over the last decade of the sport. But when you look at what he's capable of doing on a defensive and offensive side, it is going to be an upside and an up value from Gio Urshela and or Gary Sanchez, no matter who you're comparing him to. But again, the biggest question is health. Can Josh Donaldson prove that he is healthy enough to man the position for 140 plus, 145 plus games in 2022? That, over the last couple of years, we have not seen as a reliable source of proof. This is where the big question comes in for me. Why the New York Yankees have acquired the services of Josh Donaldson for his $50 million guaranteed over the next 2 seasons. That's the question. Not whether or not this player can contribute to the team, because if he's healthy, the answer is yes. If he's healthy, this is going to be a player that absolutely has a spot in this lineup. The other big question about Donaldson and Kiner-Falefa being acquired, trading away Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez, who we'll get to more in a moment, is this is another set of right-handed bats. The New York Yankees have obviously been looking to acquire a left-handed bat. And that to me is where the catcher, Ben Rortvedt, comes in. This is a player who, by all accounts, is going to be a much better defender. He's said to have an excellent framing ability, and he's a left-handed bat. I feel that going into the 2022 campaign for the New York Yankees, if this is how they are going to be presently constructed, is going to be a straight platoon lefty-righty with Kyle Higashioka. Losing out on Gary Sanchez does very little to the New York Yankee fan base. As much as some of the fans are going to miss Gary Sanchez, myself included, as I felt that at one point this was going to be the best bat on the New York Yankee lineup. But Gary did not find himself in New York being able to get back to that cameo appearance we would see from him in 2015. Now, depending on whose reports you believe, Gary Sanchez may still be on the move and finding himself not playing with the Minnesota Twins in 2022. But there are some reports that the Twins are looking to use Gary Sanchez as a platoon player with one of their other catchers in the organization. I believe that Gary Sanchez will go to Minnesota and absolutely have a monstrous season. The pressure that was being put on Gary Sanchez to become one of the best catchers in Yankee history was seemingly far too much for this player to be able to handle. I think he gets away from the spotlight that was the Bronx and absolutely finds himself back to being the impactful bat that we expected him to be all those years ago. So now, what are the absolute finals of this deal? What are my final thoughts? What are the closing moments here on the day after effect of this trade? I think the New York Yankees are not done. And I think that's the biggest thing that I can take away from this deal. The Yankees have made themselves just as right-handed as they were going into the opening day of spring training camps, the mandatory open on the 13th of March. I think that by acquiring the services of Josh Donaldson and Isiah Kiner-Falefa along with Ben Rortvedt, this is going to be an opportunity for the Yankees, in my opinion, to go after some other players. Whether or not the Yankees are trying to flip Josh Donaldson in terms of sending him out to the Oakland A's potentially for an acquisition of the Matt Olson and Matt Chapman, we will have to wait and see. I think that there's no doubt about it that there's going to be more done by the New York Yankees going into this 2022 season. They cannot leave things the way that they have right now, because otherwise they are extremely right-handed heavy. And while some may not see the right-handed, left-handed situation as being such a big deal, we were able to witness in 2021 that being so right-handed heavy really hurt the New York Yankees. When they got some balance more in that lineup with Joey Gallo and Anthony Rizzo, they were able to kind of better balance themselves out and play at a better level. Getting more left-handed bats in the New York Yankee lineup in 2022 is going to be of paramount importance. And I think that this move really signals to me that there's more coming from the New York Yankees. Whether it's signing a Freddie Freeman, trading for a Matt Olson, or signing an Anthony Rizzo, to me the Yankees are not done at this moment in time. But there's going to be something more. There has to be something more. This trade just has the entire Yankee fan base confused as to why this was the first main move that the New York Yankees had done. Obviously, they brought in Tim LeCastro, something that we covered briefly in a conversation and passing on this channel here. But there's an opportunity now for the Yankees to continue adding to this ball club. There's very little question that this is a polarizing move, and the New York Yankees have to continue adding to this team. Aaron Boone was quoted as saying that they have a team that can win as is yesterday prior to this deal being made. Obviously, there's things in the works. There's still going to be things in the works between now and the April 7th opening day. But I think there's an opportunity if the New York Yankees can position and repivot this trade to make it really stand out as a monumental move. There's no doubt that this offseason has been quite of a strange one between the lockout and now this kind of rapid fire succession that we're having here before spring training games begin on March 17th and 18th at the end of this week. But going into this new campaign, the New York Yankees have made a bold splash by acquiring Josh Donaldson, Isiah Kiner-Falefa in exchange for Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez. I want to hear your thoughts, Yankee fans. I want to hear your thoughts, baseball fans. What are you feeling about this deal? Where does this actually place the New York Yankees in your mind? We're going to get into more thoughts on that throughout the course of this week, throughout the course of this Baseball Banter Broadcast channel, as well as our podcast. So make sure you check it out on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, the Baseball Banter Broadcast podcast. And you can check out my Yankee-centric podcast on those same platforms, Spotify and Apple Podcasts, entitled The Pinstripe Plunge Report. So I want to thank you guys for tuning in. Keep it locked into the entire GLMG family with We Sips, the Granny Geek Show, and of course here on the Baseball Banter Broadcast. There's going to be a lot more happening over the next few days and coming weeks as we get closer and closer to opening day 2022. So keep it locked in here to the Baseball Banter Broadcast in all offseason as I continue to bring you the latest news, notes, and my personal thoughts, theories, and opinions on the game of Major League Baseball. Peace.